So you wanted to hear about this biologist, alone in a post-pandemic world. Well, we dove into this Hindi text and, wow, let me tell you, this story's got some serious teeth.
It really bites into you, doesn't it? I mean, it's not just about surviving, it's about, like, resilience, and loss, but then somehow finding hope in the most desolate places.
It does. Let's get right into it. So we meet Ish, right? Our biologist. He's deep in the jungle, totally isolated, doing his research thing, and suddenly, bam, venomous snake bite.
Yeah, and that's where his scientific mind, it's almost like it becomes another character. You know what I mean? Like, he knows exactly how bad this is. He pulls out all the stops, uses all his knowledge to fight the venom. I mean, even cutting himself, trying to draw it out, but he's completely alone.
And it's more than just being alone out in the jungle. It's like this snake bite is a mini version of like the bigger struggle he's about to face. It forces him to use his training, but it also shows how limited even that can be. What do you think this whole incident, what does it tell us about Ish? Like, how does it maybe prepare him for what's coming?
You're right, it does. Okay, so he's methodical, right? Resourceful, but you can sense this underlying vulnerability too. It definitely sets the stage for everything he's about to go through. Imagine surviving that, only to walk into a world that's completely empty.
Yeah, and that's where the story takes this really heartbreaking turn. It's not just that the city is deserted, it's the personal loss. He goes back to his parents' home and, well, it's not the homecoming he was hoping for. What do you think, finding his parents like that, how do you think it shapes him?
I think it shatters any thought of things ever being normal again.
Right.
It's not just an empty city, it's the emptiness in his own life, you know? And this is where the story really starts to explore the heavy stuff, the psychological weight of survival, that loneliness, the grief, the struggle to even want to keep going when everything you knew is just gone.
And he buries his parents. And then for a while, he just drifts. He even drives to Vegas, hoping for, I don't know, some sign of life. But same story everywhere, just emptiness. And then he meets these two other survivors, and it ends terribly. They actually choose to end their life. They can't face this new world alone.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder of the despair, the feeling that there's nothing left. But somehow he keeps going. He finds a stray dog, like this scruffy little companion in all his emptiness. He starts reading all these survival manuals, figuring out how to live off the land. He's scavenging, adapting, somehow carving out a routine in all this chaos.
Yeah, it's like building a life out of scraps, right?
Yeah.
Clinging to this tiny little flicker of hope. And it's that hope that leads him to Emma, right? His dog leads him to her. And, oh, man, the relief of finding another human being, it just jumps off the page. They're both cautious at first, but they decide to face this new world together.
And what's so interesting here is how this story really emphasizes that human connection.
Yeah.
I mean, even with all this devastation, you see how much they need each other. They start working together, fixing up his house, getting power going, trying to create some kind of normalcy.
Like pioneers, right?
Yeah.
In this strange new world. But it's not all smooth sailing. Wild animals start coming into the city, and then there's this huge influx of rats. You can practically hear them like swarming in the text.
Yeah, and these challenges, they force Ish and Emma to be super resourceful. They build fences, find weapons, even use cats to control the rats. It's this constant cycle of learning and adjusting, shows their adaptability.
And just when it seems like they're finding their footing, Emma tells him she's pregnant.
It's a huge turning point. Bringing a child into this world, a world with so much danger, it really speaks to their hope for the future.
Ish is terrified at first. And I mean, rightfully so, right? Can a child even survive in a world like this? But Emma's strength, her optimism, it helps him see this new life as, I don't know, as a reason to keep fighting. They start learning everything they can from books, getting ready for this baby as best they can, and then their daughter is born.
It's such a beautiful moment of joy and all this hardship. It really shows how life, it just finds a way. They name her Hater, and it's like a whole new chapter begins. They're not just surviving anymore. They're building a family, a future.
And they haven't given up on finding other survivors. They leave their address everywhere, like this tiny little beacon in all that emptiness. 6 years pass, their daughter's growing up. And then Ish has this chance meeting with a young girl in the woods.
And this encounter, it adds such a complex layer to the story. This girl, she's traumatized, she hides in his car, won't even come out when they get to the house.
By this point, two other survivors, George and Marina, they've found Ish and Emma and joined their little community. They're all trying to figure out what this girl has been through, how to help her feel safe.
Yeah, and here's where the story highlights empathy and understanding. They find a letter she has, and they learn her name is Evie, and that she's experienced some truly horrific things during the pandemic.
Turns out her own father was abusing her. Her mother was dying, and she sent Evie out, hoping someone would find her and take care of her. It's just heartbreaking, and it explains why she's so scared and doesn't trust anyone.
Yeah, her story is a reminder that even in a world like this, there are still dangers that come from, well, from other people.
It's a dark thought, but there's light, too. The community, they really embrace Evie. They're kind, they're patient, and slowly she starts to open up, to trust them. And that very night, Emma gives birth to their second child.
Another little spark of hope, right? Life pushing through even when things are hard. Their community is growing, a safe haven in this new world. But then, things take another turn. A new group of survivors arrives.
4 of them show up. One's a doctor, Molly. They seem friendly enough, and they bring valuable skills with them. Ish and Emma, they're cautious, but they welcome them into the community. Still, there's that feeling of, like, okay, you gotta earn trust.
Smart move, too, because the leader of this new group, a guy named Charlie, well, he turns out to be bad news.
Oh yeah, Charlie. He's manipulative, power-hungry, basically everything this community has been fighting against. It's like this dark undercurrent that suddenly rises to the surface. Yeah, this Charlie guy, he's trouble right from the start. And the story doesn't hold back, you know. It shows just how dangerous he is, especially for someone like Evie, who's already been through so much. He manipulates her, threatens her. He's like the opposite of everything they've been trying to build.
It's true, and it puts Ish in a really difficult position. He knows he has to protect everyone, especially Evie, but taking a life, that's a heavy thing to carry.
It's not a decision he makes lightly, that's for sure. The whole community struggles with it.
Yeah.
Weighing the danger against doing something they never thought they'd have to do. But they see Charlie for what he is. A threat they can't ignore.
Right. And this whole situation, this act of killing, it forces you to think about morality in a world like this. Like, is there a point where protecting your own means crossing lines you never thought you would? And what does that kind of choice do to a person, to a whole community?
So they make a plan, confront Charlie, and Ish. He has to kill him. And it's a turning point, not just in the story, but for Ish himself. He's shaken, really dealing with the weight of what he's done. He knew it had to be done, but it changes him.
Yeah, and what makes this story so powerful is that it doesn't shy away from the consequences. You know, this isn't just some action movie moment. It shows the psychological impact, the scars it leaves.
And those scars, they don't just stay with Ish, you know. The whole community feels it. They're on edge. They've dealt with one threat, but the world feels even more uncertain now. And like to prove that point, the story throws them another curveball. Remember that virus, the one that devastated the world all those years ago? Well, it comes back.
Oh man, what a twist. Talk about bad timing, right? Just when they found some stability, some peace, that fear comes rushing back. It makes you think maybe the author's saying something about how suffering, it can come in waves, that we can never really escape the past.
It's a punch to the gut for sure. And this time, it's personal. Some people in the community get infected, including Ish's own son. Molly, the doctor, she does everything she can, but the virus is just too strong. Ish loses his son, and then 3 others die. It's brutal.
It really is. The story doesn't sugarcoat anything. It's a reminder that loss, it's always there, lurking, even when things are good. But it also shows the strength of the people who are left.
Ish is devastated. He wants to give up. But Emma, she's his anchor.
Yeah.
You know, she reminds him that they've come so far, built something precious. They have other children who need them.
That's where human connection, it becomes everything. Like a lifeline when you feel like you're drowning, even when you feel hopeless. Having someone who believes in you, it can make all the difference.
And Emma's words, they pull him back. He realizes he can't stay stuck in the past, focused on what's gone. He has to teach his kids how to survive in this world.
It's a huge shift for him. He accepts that the world has changed forever and he has to change with it.
He takes his kids to the mountains, shows them the sunrise, and says, "This is your world now." It's different, it's harsh, but it's also beautiful, full of possibilities.
Yeah, and there's this sense of acceptance there. Once he lets go of that longing for the old world, he can see what's good about the new one.
He teaches them practical stuff hunting, farming, how to build, how to create. He wants them to be able to take care of themselves, to be resilient.
He's giving them the tools they need, not just to survive, but to really thrive. He's becoming the leader, the teacher his community needs.
And the community they start to rebuild. They find sustainable ways to live. They even build a radio so they can connect with the outside world again.
It's amazing, their ingenuity. They're not just giving up, they're shaping their future.
But even with all the progress, it's still a dangerous world. One day, a lion gets into their compound. Total chaos. Ish fights it off, protects his kids, but he's badly hurt. Molly and the others, they manage to save him, but he's left with this scar. A reminder of how vulnerable they are.
It's a scary moment, a reminder that no matter how much you prepare, danger can still find you.
17 years go by. The kids are grown up. Ish's daughter, Hader, she falls in love with the boy in the community. And they have this wanderlust, you know. Yeah. They want to see what's beyond their little settlement, see if there are other survivors out there.
Shows the spirit of the next generation, right? That desire to explore, to connect.
Ish and the others, they're hesitant. They know the dangers, but they understand that longing for something more. So they give Hader and her companion supplies, weapons, and send them off.
It's bittersweet. You can feel the worry, but also the pride. They're letting go, trusting the next generation to make their own way.
And right as they leave, the community faces a new crisis. The dam they rely on for water, it starts drying up.
A classic problem in a world like that. Water is life, and when it's gone...
They're desperate. And then, wouldn't you know it, another group of survivors shows up. They have a drilling machine, and they offer to help in exchange for fuel.
Tempting offer, right. But you can understand why Ish is cautious.
He is. He agrees, but he's careful. They make a deal. The newcomers drill for water, and Ish's community gives them fuel. Seems like a good deal for everyone.
On the surface, yeah. But the story keeps you guessing. Trust is hard to come by, especially when resources are scarce.
And the drilling works, thankfully. They find water. Everyone's relieved. But Ish, he notices something about the leader of this new group, Carl. Something feels off.
Ish has learned to trust his gut. And as he digs a little deeper, he uncovers something truly awful.
It turns out Carl has been abusing Evie. And to make things worse, Carl. He's Charlie's son. He's come for revenge.
Wow. Like the past coming back to haunt them.
Ish knows he has to act quickly. But this time, there's no hesitation. Everyone agrees. Carl has to go.
The community's not the same as it was. They've learned to protect each other.
They confront Carl, and Ish kills him. No questions asked.
Powerful moment. But it makes you think, you know, what does survival cost? Does killing, even when you have to, does it change you?
They've gotten rid of the threat, but there's a price. Ish, he's haunted by the men he's killed to protect his community.
The burden of leadership, it's not easy.
But he doesn't face it alone, though. Emma's there, and the community rallies around him. They drive out the rest of Carl's group, except for one guy who begs to stay. He says he's not like Carl, that he just wants a place to belong.
Tough situation. But Ish, he remembers how Charlie's cruelty poisoned his son. He can't risk it. He turns the man away.
A hard choice, but it shows what they've learned. Trust is precious. They can't make any mistakes. And as the story starts to wrap up, we see the community rebuilding, adapting. The kids are growing up, learning about the old world, but looking to the future.
Makes you think about the stories we pass down. And that brings us to the ending, right?
It's a powerful ending, that's for sure. Ish's granddaughter, he's telling his story, you know, keeping his journey alive for the next generation. Makes you think about how we carry our history with us, how stories connect us to the past.
Yeah, it kind of brings the whole story full circle. The granddaughter's retelling, it means that all of Ish's struggles, his sacrifices, the things he learned, they don't just disappear. It's like the story itself becomes something that lives on, changing a little with each retelling.
And it makes me wonder about storytelling itself. I mean, in a world like that where so much has been lost, stories become this essential way of understanding things, of remembering who we are and where we came from.
It's more than just remembering, though, right? It's about learning from the past. The granddaughter, she's not just reciting the story. She's thinking about it, you know, finding meaning in it for her own life, for her generation.
It's like how Ish, he finally finds his strength when he stops holding on to the past. It must have been painful, letting go of the way things used to be. But that's the only way he can really move forward. Do you think there's like a lesson there for us? Like sometimes we have to let go of things to build a better future.
I think so. You can't move on if you're stuck looking back. She has to deal with the grief, the anger, all those emotions. Only then can he see what's possible. And it's not about forgetting, it's about using those experiences to become stronger.
It makes you wonder, what do we need to let go of today to make tomorrow better?
Definitely something would make about.
Yeah.
You know, this story with all the darkness and the light, it's more than just an adventure. It's about what it means to be human, to face these impossible challenges and find a way to survive, but also to rebuild, to connect with each other, to love.
For me, it's the community. How even when everything seems lost, they find strength in each other. It's a good reminder that we don't have to face things alone.
Definitely. And this story shows us that even when everything falls apart, we can come together, rebuild, and create something new and meaningful. It's a message we all need right now.
We've covered so much in this deep dive, the things these characters went through, the choices they made, the hope they found. It's really incredible. What's the one thing you hope our listener takes away from all of this?
I think it's the idea that even when we lose so much, even when things seem hopeless, there's always a reason to keep going. There's always something worth fighting for, something to believe in. And when we support each other, when we have that sense of community, we can overcome anything.
That's a good thought to keep in mind. And to our listener, we want to hear from you. What did you think of this story? What stuck with you? Let us know. And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.